Right, today we're going to study chapter 2, SD 39, 39.2. The sutta title is Isayo Samudaka Sutta, the discourse on the seaside rishis or seers, no? As 11.10. Today's sutta is very short, very interesting. It talks on a different level of language. So this is where we need to understand how the Buddha teaches, how to look at the suttas, and more broadly, how to look at life, how we talk, how we communicate, how we think, how we understand things. And this is very important because if you look around today, it's really good not just to know religion, but also to know psychology, because a lot of religion deals with how our mind works. And there's a large percentage of religion, if you notice, are imaginative, things we don't really see in daily life. For example, we talk about the Buddha, but we don't meet the Buddha. But of course, it's not really a big problem for us because we know through historical records the Buddha did exist. But what about, say, gods and devas, demons, talking animals? We don't see these things, but we talk about them as if they are real. Of course, if we suspend our judgment and we take it on faith, we can say we accept all that. You might say if all religions, behave in that way. But there are problems, because you might get an intelligent young person put out a hand in a question time and say, how do you know these things exist? Then it's very difficult to answer such questions. But the Buddha knew all these issues, And in fact, it's very important that we understand what the Buddha has to say here. In the Book of Tools, the Dukkha Nipata, the Anguttara, the Buddha says whenever you look at a sutta, or that means when we listen to a Dhamma speaker, you have to distinguish between two ways of teaching or two levels of words, if you like. In other words, you got to ask, what level is this person talking? For example, if he talks about stories about talking animals, devas, he uses concepts, you can say that's a conceptual level, that it's a story level. Here the Buddha has simplified into two levels. Okay? So we take it as conceptual, story, worldly level. And when he talks directly, say, impermanence, dukkha, suffering, the five aggregates, mind, body, feelings, and so on, then of course he's talking on the Dhamma level, right? So the story level, the meaning must be drawn out. In other words, we must ask, what does this mean? What is the teacher trying to say? What's the Buddha trying to say? What's the sutta trying to say? On the Dhamma level, it's easier. Like, for example, the Buddha says, all things in this world are impermanent, right? So it's quite clear, quite direct. So we need to reflect on this. We need to reflect on this because we have not internalized it yet. We have not realized it. Realize means to make real. It is not real for us yet. It may be true for us. In other words, we may accept it, but it's not really part of us. We don't fully understand it yet. We may have the knowledge, but we don't have the wisdom yet, in other words. So we need to reflect constantly. Reflect means to see it as it really is, just like a mirror. The mirror reflects reality, just as it is. The mirror does not change things. So we have to see this truth all around us. And this is a very important aspect. This is why in Buddhism we say religion is a very personal thing. You have to realize it for yourself. No one can do it for you. So it is so meaningful in that sense. So there is this first teaching is called the meaning must be drawn out. Okay, neyata. The second is where the Dhamma is given directly. The meaning has been drawn out. So we must distinguish these two approaches. Now, once you understand this teaching, Buddhism, religion becomes more sensible. You begin to understand nature of religions better. But remember, you may understand the nature of religion better, but not many people out there, even the religious speakers, understand or accept this kind of approach. For example, I was at this meeting recently, and there are lots of Mahayana speakers. Come to think of it, I'm the only early Buddhist representative there. In fact, they're not very comfortable with the word early Buddhism, So they say you should use the word Theravada, because they feel that if I say I'm interested in early Buddhism, it feels as if they are late Buddhism, and they don't feel comfortable with that. So I said, I have no problem, you want to use Theravada, go ahead, but I want you to understand that the research I'm doing, my interest is, of course, to find out what the Buddha actually has taught, and so that I can practice directly what he has taught, and so that I get the benefit whatever he has to teach. So, in other words, there's different people, promoters of different religion, they want to promote their teaching. Basically, they're saying my teaching is right, and some even say that only my teaching is right. In Buddhism, we always reminded these are all viewpoints, so it's okay. A lot of people have their viewpoints. The important thing is, how do we, as human beings, communicate in a way which can make the other party happy? And when they're happy, then they become curious. They ask you, how come you're so happy? How do you become happy? And then they're not really interested in all these dogmas and stories, and they want to experience directly. So this is the Buddha's example of his calm and peace. The early monks are also like that. They go out very peacefully, and people are wondering, why are they so peaceful? So this is the direct experience of the Dharma, the peacefulness in a person. Not how much a person knows, not how much a person talks. You find very often in Buddhist talks, a speaker may tell you a lot of things that he knows. But then we've been listening for talks for so many years, but nothing seems to happen to us. We're not enlightened, we're not awakened. So in other words, it's very important for us to experience the joy and peace of the Dharma directly. And one way to do this is to understand the true nature of things. When we look around, everything is impermanent. And if that's reality, then what? Even if you lose something there, you don't feel sad. You say, well, that's the nature of things. And you're calm inside. And if you're calm inside, you feel more peacefully. And if you feel more peaceful, you can concentrate better, and you can become wise faster. Right? So that's how it works in terms of the mind. And so that's why psychology is helpful in understanding the nature of religion. Okay. So when we talk about religion in a psychological way, again, we like to use figurative language. This is a second kind, or rather the first kind of language mentioned earlier, where the meaning must be drawn up. We talk about gods and devas, talking animals, and so on. So, because we like stories. Why do we like stories? Like this sutta is a story about the devas and the asuras fighting each other. We like stories because it is entertaining. But what do you mean by entertaining? It means it makes us feel happy. Why do we feel happy? Because we are seeing human nature in action. And we don't have to be a part of it. In the sense that you don't have to get killed when you see the devas and asuras fighting. You watch it, you are just the audience, you are safe, and at the same time, you feel connected with something good usually, and you feel happy in the end to see good triumph and the good succeeding, and you feel happy. Okay, so happiness, meaning that you feel a kind of relief, a kind of openness, a freedom. So stories give us that kind of freedom, that kind of ability to imagine in a safe way what are the possible ways of life. If someone does something bad, this person may be happy at first, but later he will suffer. Right? Those who are good may seem to suffer at first, but in the end they actually become happy. So we find, okay, this is good. So you become more confident with yourself that you have not really failed, although you have done good things, people don't appreciate it. So you begin to have more confidence in your own life, in other words. So stories have that kind of effect on us. But we should know that these stories are not real. They are imaginative, right? Of course, there's a whole field of this kind of approach, and we call it literature. It's a very important area of human learning, human civilization. Even the cavemen will draw on the cave walls about their hunts and so on, so they're telling stories. So here is where we need to understand the nature of stories, right? They are imaginative, they represent certain human values, human qualities, and we got to find out what are these qualities, okay? So this is a very important introduction we must have before we go into this story here, because we are going to look at this short story in a very profound, helpful way, so that we can use this to understand other difficult teachings in Buddhism also. Now, one more point before we go into the story. You notice on the board I've written the word nama rupa. No? Nama means the naming aspect of our consciousness. Rupa is the form which is out there. Okay? We see something out there, right? What is form? Form is made up of earth, water, fire, wind in some kind of combination. Okay? Nama is the name we give to it, but it's nothing but four elements. So the nama is the function of the mind. Okay? Rupa is the nature of what is called material things, form, matter, if you like. Now this understanding is very useful because today you see there are many kinds of Buddhism. In some days Buddhism, they have gone way, way out of what the Buddha has taught. They talk about someone today who is a living Buddha and so on. I mean, that's not possible. You know, there can be only one Buddha. We only need one Buddha in one dispensation. There's one captain in the ship, for example. And you also hear some people talk about all kinds of deities and bodhisattvas and demons and so on. And we don't know if they exist or not. And occasionally you hear questioners on the floor in the talk asking, do these beings exist? And it's not an easy question to answer. Okay? So, but if you understand the nature of the Dharma to be drawn out, and the Dharma whose meaning is already explicit, then you understand it better. In other words, whenever there is the use of the word being, bodhisattva, deva, demon, right? These are all what are called, the meaning has to be drawn up. They are not real in themselves. We created these ideas and stories. If I take the example of Kuan Yin, we see Kuan Yin in so many forms, right? Is Kuan Yin real? It's a very difficult question to answer. It depends who you ask. If you ask a pure in the sense that 100% Theravada, who only studies Pali and follows the Theravada tradition, this teacher may say Kuan Yin doesn't exist. But you ask Mahayana, you say, oh yes, Kuan Yin exists. So you have two contradictory answers, Now there is an answer in between in this case. I think some of you heard the very story I often tell about how my own experience. This student who was drowning in the water, and then I was a monk at that time, so I just kind of invoked Kuan Yin and said, may this boy be helped. So I kind of focused myself because I can't swim and I can't jump to the water, but other people were doing that. Okay? So when you do this kind of prayer, to use this word in a very open way, it's like you're communicating with this person in trouble. See? So in this case, we are so used to the idea of Kuan Yin. Okay, if you are a different religion, different culture, you are very Indian, you probably think of another god, another deity, another spirit, for example. So this boy was drowning. In the water, he felt like giving up. He probably had lots of problems, so he felt like he doesn't want to come up, he doesn't want to live anymore. He's quite happy. He's, sinking to the water, he can't swim. And then then later, when he was safe, when he's on dry land already, he told me that he was sinking and he was kind of letting go of everything, doesn't want to come up. And then he saw a figure of Kuan Yin up there, you see. And then like Kuan Yin stretching out the hand, and then he came up, see, because of that. So he changed his mind, as it were, because he saw this vision. And he came out, he was saved. Now, this is a real story, It's a story. Because I invoked, in a sense I invoked Kuan Yin and so on. So this is the story, you see. So now let me explain to you how this happened, why this happened. Now, I have never seen Kuan Yin. I don't know Kuan Yin exists as a person or not, but I know from the teachings of early Buddhism, Kuan Yin does not exist as a human being, because if Kuan Yin exists as a human being, there'll be a lot of problems. Because how is he, again, is it he or she, another big issue, how is he or she going to be present everywhere? Millions of people praying, you know. You can't answer all the prayers at the same time. It is impossible. Of course, you can switch into the God believers mode, or everything with Kuan Yin is possible. Then you might as well believe in God ideas. So you see your big issues there, right? But I have a simpler answer here. We call it faith. But this is good faith, faith in goodness. Kuan Yin represents compassion. Compassion, see? In other words, what I'm trying to tell you is, what I explain should also work for you. It's not something private or secretive, or only I can do it, but not you. Anyone can do this. You have faith. In other words, you have this image of goodness in your mind, and you see there's so many images of Kuan Yin, you know. Some, India looks like a prince. In China, it's womanly. Again, you can talk about why in India it looks like a prince, in China it's a woman. It's another long discussion you can have there. It's very important social meaning of Kuan Yin. Anyway, the point is this. When we imagine Kuan Yin in our mind, what are we thinking of? We're thinking of compassion. So your mind is focused, okay? And when your mind is focused, if you're really focused, you can, in a sense, communicate with the other person, like you do loving kindness. You don't have to have great psychic power here. You regularly do loving kindness, especially you do in a group when someone is sick. You get into a very calm state, loving kindness, very close to compassion, and then you direct this wonderful, peaceful energy to this sick person. And this person will heal faster, okay? Or this person will feel happy. This person is overseas, far away, for example. Say your children, your loved one. You know? So here, what I think I've done is I've really fervently, you know, reflected on this image of Kuan Yin, and then sent this very compassionate thoughts to this person. And it worked because it's a life-threatening situation, see? You know, when there's life-threatening situation, we get into a state where we have superhuman powers. You know, it's a story about this man who was chased by a tiger. He got so terrified and he ran and ran. He came to a tree, jumped right up to the tree. And then he was safe. Tiger went away, he came down. His friend asked, how did you escape the tiger? He said, well, I ran and then I come to the tree and then I jumped like this. He jumped, he couldn't go very high. Then the friend said, how do you jump? He said, I don't know. When the tiger chased me, I jumped very high, but now I can't. Okay? So in other words, there is this ability of the mind to give us inner strength. There's another one, true story. This father was coming home from work, and then he saw his son, young boy, got pinned down under this big conduit. You know, this huge big conduit with this, the hole is like this big and it's very long, right? Maybe 20 feet long. He got stuck underneath, you know, because he probably crawled under, cannot come out, you know. So this poor boy was stuck there panicking, and the father was so shocked. He ran out quickly, threw down all his bags and things, and then just quickly lifted up the conduit, you know, right? And said, come on, come on. And this boy got out, you know. And happily went home, told the mother, said, you know, our son is so mischievous, got stuck in the conduit, you know. And luckily I came in time and I lifted the conduit and they came out. And mother said, you must be crazy, you know, even the conduit is, you need this crane to carry the whole conduit. And the husband said, no, it was quite light for me. So the wife said, come show me. So they all went, and the husband said, well, this is how I did it. He put his hand there. He could not move it at all. No, he couldn't even shove it. It was stuck heavy, you see. So, how do you explain this? In moments of danger, we get that kind of extra power. Somehow, things will work. So, when you talk about Kuan Yin also, same thing. You are in a desperate state, you focus your mind. In other words, the mind is focused. When your mind is focused, you can do wonderful things. So that's another way of explaining it. And we use compassion in the form of Kuan Yin. This is called a personification. This is called a symbolization. You figure it into a person, so it's easier to think about it, right? So if you think in that way, you think of compassion and you think, okay, Kuan Yin is like this, I got to be compassionate. It is okay, it's workable. But if you say, oh, Kuan Yin will help, Kuan Yin, please help me, I need $1 million, and then you are robbing a bank, or say, Kuan Yin, please help me. The some people actually believe Kuan Yin can help. I think that is a wrong idea, okay, because it is breaking the precepts. Right? So this is where we must also think of the precepts, in other words. So once you have this kind of understanding, you begin to know that Kuan Yin is not a person, but it's our own mind's energy of compassion. And compassion has no name, no sex. It's a wonderful power. And anyone can invoke this kind of power. You focus your mind, picturing this, your favorite picture of Kuan Yin, for example. And this also applies to other religions. If they really have faith, they're kind, they can use any kind of image in their religion which is peaceful, which shows compassion, and they're helpful. And this is where we come to another interesting point, I was reflecting, I said, even among the Buddhists, we make each other uncomfortable because we come from different groups, and we start saying our group, our sect, our temple is better than others, and so on. So I told myself, what are we really here for as Buddhists? Now, our idea is to be compassionate to people, to be kind to them, to bring wisdom to them. In that case, isn't it better, instead of having Buddhist temple, Christian churches, Muslim mosques, why can't we in the future, hopefully, we just have kindness temple, compassion center, charity building, whatever. No religion, just the actual virtues. Then you don't have to fight. In other words, people have forgotten all about religion, but they remember the qualities the Buddha taught. And if you are told, learn to be compassionate, learn to be kind, you don't have to worry about religion. It doesn't matter. You see my point? Just the quality. Actually, this is what the Buddha taught when the Buddha teaches non-self. When the Buddha talks about non-self, he's saying don't identify it with anything, not even with Buddhism. Because if you know, originally Buddhism is not a religion. Buddha didn't say, oh, I'm going to start a religion one day. It's got nothing to do with it's a bored prince. He didn't do that. He discovered nature of suffering, how to get out of suffering. Then he said, I must share it with everybody. So, same thing with us. We feel that we want to help people. It doesn't matter what kind of people. They come, their problem, we help them. We don't say, oh, I only help this kind of people, or only if you're Buddhist. We help all kinds of people. So, of course, today, things are such that because of organization, yes, we need to be statistics, we need to be Buddhists, this and that. But as Buddhists, we can think like this. We apply non-self to our approach to others. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's possible. Okay, maybe it's futuristic. One day in the future, people become more open-minded. They say, there was a time long ago, it's like 1,000 years later, they look back our time, they say, those days are so primitive, they actually use different kinds of religion. That'd be really amusing, So this is where we got to keep open-minded, right? Okay, so there you are. We talk about different ways of looking at stories. So now let's look at this story and see how can we apply our understanding so far. The story is on page 45. The discourse on the seaside rishis. Rishis are seers, they are wise, what they call forest ascetics, if you like. At Savatthi. So down now the Buddha is talking, says, once upon a time, bhikshus, a number of rishis or seers, morally virtuous, good by nature, dwelled in leaf huts on the seashore. So they live by the sea. Now at that time, the devas and the asuras were prepared or arrayed for battle. Then bhikshus, it occurred to those rishis who were morally virtuous, good by nature, righteous are the devas, unrighteous are the asuras. There may be danger for us from the asuras. What now if we approach the asura chief Sambara and beseech him to promise us safety? Okay, so this is the first part. Now let me explain. So you have the gods on one side and you have the asuras on the other side. Now, these are the two kinds of beings who are not on a very high level, they are still beings of the sense world. In other words, same like our world. They depend on the senses. They are a little higher in the sense they have greater joy than us, but they are still of the sense world. They are not of the form world. The form world devas are more like, their minds are more joyful, they are pure minds and so on, so they don't have physical body like us. Whereas the gods, they are more of a sense world, more physical, in other words. Okay, there's another interesting point here, We can ask ourselves, do these gods really exist or not? Again here, I don't have a convincing answer here. I don't think anybody can, because if you say the gods don't exist, you are going to dispute a lot of people. If you say the God exists, you're going to confuse a lot of people, So it's not easy to answer, unless you can say this is mythology. Mythology are stories, but they're not necessarily untrue. They're not necessarily false. They are based on some real events in history. Take, for example, the Chinese mythology of Quan Ti. Now, we know Quan Ti was a living general. He was a very upright, honest, brave person. And when he died, because of his great character, the Chinese worshipped him. And this is called apotheosis. He became a god. Okay? So he was an ordinary man, but he was a very honest, upright person. So the Chinese see him in that way. Right? So there are many other stories like this. You find many of those gods, they're based on some kind of human story. The stories of the Buddhist gods are very similar to the stories of the Greek gods, the ancient Greek gods. But what's interesting is the ancient Greek gods have died out. Why did the Greek gods die out? Because people stopped worshipping them. When people stop worshipping the gods die out. But I wrote a very reflection entitled, "When you worship the Buddha dies." Buddhas are not meant to be worshipped. When you practice your meditation, your mind is at peace, the Buddha is real. You see what I mean? Because the Buddha doesn't say, "Hey, worship me." It's not like that. He says, "Practice my teaching." That's the difference. Okay. So my point here is, the Greek gods died because people stopped worshipping them. The Indian gods are still alive because people worship them or tell stories about them. So who created the gods? It's quite interesting, right? These gods grew from our culture, in other words. And these gods tell stories about good and evil and the fights and so on. So the gods and the asuras were always fighting. Well, they have nothing else to do because they are gods. They have a lot of time and they don't die until the karma finishes. See? So they fight each other, but they don't die. See? Even if they die, if you find the stories in all the other cultures, like the Viking gods, they do die. They go into battle, they fight, and they die, but they die knowing they will go to Valhalla. In other words, they lose their physical body, but they gain this ethereal body or this heavenly body, and they are reborn in this Valhalla, big hall, bigger than the Singapore Conference Hall, bigger than the Singapore Stadium, where the Vikings enjoy what Vikings enjoy. Drinking and singing and getting drunk in this big hall, So that's their heaven, you see. And then what were the Red Indians? The Red Indians, their heaven is the happy hunting grounds because they enjoy hunting the bison those days. So different culture, different concept of heaven. Okay, so the kind of heaven we conceive will show what kind of culture we have. So in a sense, you might say Nirvana transcends all the heavens. Nirvana is very different, okay, so to speak. So here, these devas, whether you believe they exist or not, doesn't matter in Buddhism. So that's one way of answering it. You say it doesn't matter. You want to believe devas exist? Fine. You think devas don't exist? They're just stories? Fine too. But don't quarrel. Do not fix your ideas in that way. In other words, once you start meditating, it doesn't matter whether devas exist or not. Because if you think about the devas, whether they exist or not, right? Whether they are real or not real, if you meditate, you think about them, you cannot meditate. You know, I mean, sooner or later you got to let go of all thoughts. This is another very important teaching in Buddhism of meditation. Once you go into meditation, you let go of all ideas, good and bad. You just focus on what is real before you. And then you come to a state of joy, you just go beyond thoughts. You go beyond thoughts to the level of joy. Right? So this is another important understanding in myself, that all these stories we use is to bring joy and peace to us, so that we clear our minds of thoughts and suffering, because suffering arises from thinking. Okay? So you have the gods and devas fighting each other. So this is a story the Buddha tells. How did the gods and the asuras started fighting? Well, these are the gods of the 33. You remember the story? The young gods, Magha and his friend, 33 friends, they did lots of good work on earth, so they were reborn as the gods of the 33. Because there are 33 friends, plus Magha, who became Sakra later on. So they are reborn in this heaven of the 33, and there were the old gods there. And these old gods were drinking like the Viking gods, and they were kind of not godly in behavior. So these young gods, Sakra, as you know, as the Buddhists see him, is a very virtuous person. So he looks at these old gods and he says, oh, this is not seemly at all. I mean, you know, these old gods, they're not behaving themselves properly, you know. So Magha and the 33, when these other gods were drunk, pushed them off from heaven. Now, all this kind of action, you know very well, these are stories. You know? I mean, how do you push people out from heaven? Not easy, isn't it? And the story goes that these gods, they got pushed off from heaven and they fell down from heaven past Mount Sumeru, and they're going to hit the earth. So in other words, they locate Mount Sumeru on earth, you know. So the idea of heaven is kind of like very close to earth those days. And as human civilization progresses, the heavens get farther and farther away. Heavens get bigger and bigger. It's another interesting concept, you know. So these gods are falling and falling. In fact, such a great distance. It's a great distance because they had time to become sober. You know? So halfway they were sober, and they realized, what's happening to us? Why are we falling down from the skies? Then they realized, oh no, we were drunk. And then they said, no more drinks for us. Now, I don't know how Hollywood is going to make this movie. You know, these guys are all falling and they're talking to each other while they're falling. You know, so they say we will stop drinking. So no more sura. Sura. Remember we recite the precept, fifth precept, sura meraya, machapamadhatana. Remember, sura is strong drink. So they said no more sura. Asura. Means no more. Okay? So that's how they got the name Asura. One meaning. Second meaning is Sura means gods. The gods are called Sura, brave. From the word Sura you get Surya, meaning the sun. So now that they are fallen, they are no more gods, Asura. So that's another meaning also. Two meanings. So in the Greek stories they got the anti-gods, the titans. So you got the gods and you got the anti-gods. So very similar pattern of stories in the Greek mythology too. So these gods, they've fallen down on the earth, and they're not very happy because they were once in the heavens and they know they were overthrown by the young gods. Then the story went that there is this tree, you know, this wish-fulfilling tree. In India, it's called a wish-fulfilling tree. Okay, the tree grows on earth or on the ground where the asuras lived, and then they flower and fruit in the heavens where the god enjoys the fruit. They just eat it, whatever wish they want. It's called Chintamani. You know? It's Kalpa Druma in Sanskrit. Kalpa means thought, so whatever they just think, they'll get it. For example, the food, they just think what kind of taste, they get it. You know? So it's a wonderful way of life. You just think, you get it. Okay? Whereas in the Chinese version, the idea changed a bit. In the Chinese version, they want long life. So to them, this tree is the tree of eternal life. Okay, so it's a bit of change in emphasis. Anyway, so this tree grows in the heavens, but the roots are in the Asura land. The Asuras go up, they want to pluck the fruits, but the Devas chase them away again. So Asura is very upset. They decide to chop down the tree. So whenever they try to do that, the Devas come down again and chase them away. So you find they're eternally fighting in this way, right? But this is one scene where they fight elsewhere, right? So they're going to fight, and here the seers, the seaside seers, they realize whenever these asuras and the gods fight, it's really messy. Now, nowadays you can imagine it because you can see those movies, like you see all those superheroes movie, what Superman, Thor, whatever, even Spider-Man, you find whole cities get destroyed, right? So you can see this idea already there 2,500 years ago in this Isayo Samudaka Sutta. No? So these seers, they know when these devas and asuras fight, they are all, we are talking about their leaf huts, it's not like permanent structures. The whole area get destroyed. So this time the seers thought that let us go to the leader, Sambara, and beseech him, beg him, say, please, leave our area out. Please don't make our area like a Switzerland, neutral zone. Don't come to our area to fight, please. So the story up to that point. Now let's continue, page 46. Then bhikshus, the rishis, morally virtuous, good by nature, just as a strong man would stretch his bent arm or would bend his stretched arm, disappeared from their leaf huts on the seashore and appeared before the Asura chief Sambara. Okay, so these seers are very powerful. They are meditators, so they got psychic powers. If you don't believe they got psychic powers, okay, it's just a story. Okay. Then bhikshus, the rishis, morally virtuous, good by nature, addressed the Asura chief Sambara in verse. Usually the wise, the saints and the gods, they speak in verse. No? So he says, the rishis have come before Sambara beseeching for the gift of safety. For you could give this if you wish to, be it danger or safety. Right? So this is a delegation. The rishis go to Sambara and says, you can give us safety if you want. So we request of you, give us safety. Do not mess up our place. All right? What does Sambara say? Sambara, chief of the Asura, says, there is no safety for you, rishis, hateful Sakra devotees. Asking for safety, I'll give you only danger. This is talking about very fierce Asura chief, He doesn't like the rishis because the rishis are devotees of the gods, because they support the gods. So Sambara says, no, I will not spare you. All right? Okay, so they are now put in a corner. These poor rishis have no choice now. Well, now they are no more poor because they are very powerful rishis. Okay, this is what happens now, the closing part. The rishis say, Abhyang yachamanang bhayam meva dadasino. Patigan hama te etang akkayang hoti te bhayang. Asking for safety, you gave us but danger. We receive this from you. May danger without end be yours. Now I've read you the Pali verse because this is no ordinary verse. This is a curse. The rishis now use a curse to challenge the asuras, because they say, give us safety. The asuras won't give safety, so that this desperate rishis say, we have no choice but to use our own power. Okay, so in other words, we ask for safety out of kindness, but you are not kind to us. By this very truth, may you face your own bad deeds. This is called the act of truth, Satyakiriya. This is a very ancient belief in ancient India, which the Buddhists also took over. Now comes the most famous verse. Yadisang wapate bijang, tadisang harate palang. Kalyana kari kalyanang, papa kari cha papakang. Pawutang tang te bijang, palang pachanubo sa si ti. Okay? This last verse is very famous, The temple novices have to memorize this last verse. I remember in my exam, this question also came out, the Dhamma question. We got to translate this into Thai. Okay, but I was fortunate. I asked for dispensation. I write it in English. Okay, when I sat for the exam, I think it was English, if I'm not mistaken. So, look at the translation. Whatever seed that is sown, that is the fruit reaped therefrom. Good comes to the good doer, and bad to the bad doer. By you, dear, the seed is sown, so the fruit you will taste. There you are. Very powerful curse, you know. So this is how I'm not teaching you to curse. Okay? I'm just saying this is how the seers use their power of truth. You know, it's a very, very famous theme in Indian literature. The seers tell the asuras, but this very act of your wickedness, we have no ill intention towards you. Since we have no ill will towards you. You want to put us in danger, may the danger go back to you. And this story is repeated, this theme is repeated many times, and you find some very beautiful, funny stories in the Dhammapada story also. Okay? And these are so powerful, these ideas are so powerful. The story when even the sun stopped moving in the sky, you know? And the person who did the wrong thing have to correct it before the sun can move again. It's amazing. You have this kind of sun-stopping stories in our commentaries also. All right? Anyway, so now the conclusion now. Then bhikshus, the rishis, morally virtuous, good by nature, having cursed the asura chief, Sambara, just as a strong man would stretch his bent arm and would bend his stretched arm, disappeared before the asura chief Sambara and appeared in their leaf huts. Then bhikshus, the asura chief Sambara, after being cursed by the rishis, morally virtuous, good by nature, was thrice terrified in the night. So he couldn't sleep, caught up in the night. 3 times, you know. In fact, this sutta is also the origin story of how his name was changed. In fact, his name Sambara is not so well known. It's only known in this sutta. His name was changed to Vepachiti. One's mind was shaken, you know. So he came to be known as Vepachiti later on. So Vepachiti is the leader of the Asuras, and then Shakra, leader of the gods, and they were fighting each other. And there are a number of other suttas naming him as the key figure. So here, what happened to Vepachiti? His karma acted on him, all right, because of his own intention. Yeah, of course, this is a story about karma, right? Ultimately, the one who does bad will face his own fruits, okay? But remember, there is a saying, you know, we like to say in terms of karma, we say, as you sow, so you shall reap. Right? Very famous saying. But the Buddha didn't say this. It comes from this verse. Who said this? It is the seers. Remember? The seers. In fact, not only the seers said this, it's part of a curse. Right? So that's why you must remember this context, you know. You read the suttas, and then you say, oh, the sutta said this, you know. So as you sow, so you shall reap. Oh, so it's Buddha word. The Buddha said this. Right? Until you read very carefully, oh, the Buddha didn't say this. This is spoken by the seers, actually. Well, because if you say that as you sow, so you shall reap, and that's karma, according to Buddhism, you are wrong. Because that kind of karma is impossible. I mean, it may suit this particular story, yes. For example, there are many things we do, the results don't come. Not immediately, you know. We can plant all the seeds we want, but they don't all grow. They don't all grow, see. But the principle is there. The principle means that if you do something good, sooner or later, that's very important, sooner or later, good will come. But usually it doesn't come soon, you know, right? So that's why we got to understand this kind of saying. So if we rephrase this, we might say, if you do good, sooner or later, good will come to you. Yes, that's more accurate like that, right? So we cannot make it too exact. There's another thing you must also know. If you say you sow good, you get good, that means everything that you do, the result must come. Technically speaking, that will happen. There is one sutta where the Buddha does say that whatever karma you do, the results will come to you, come back to you. That's why we get caught up in samsara. We are never free because this karma keep ripening all the time. We can never get out of it, right? So when you meditate, when you do loving kindness especially, you modify karma a bit or you can stop it. You don't need to do any magical rituals. Loving kindness is the great magic here, okay? Loving kindness limits your karma. Loving kindness prevents you from creating bad karma, okay? So only in letting go of greed, hate, delusion, you will not attract the fruits of karma. Karma is not a one-to-one thing. karma are conditions. For example, you can in a way, in a manner of speaking, it is the karma of oil to burn if there's fire near it. Okay? If the, what else? You must have air also, dryness, you must have lots of conditions, like not just oil and fire, right? I mean, if there's vacuum, you get some kind of fire and there's oil, you won't really burn, you see, because there's no oxygen, right? So karma is a condition. In other words, let's say if someone does something bad, it's a habit. He will be doing this bad thing again and again, and whenever the conditions are right, he will suffer. So the suffering, in a sense, will be much more than the bad deed he has done. But on the other hand, the Buddha also says, a small gift that you make, a small gift by a poor person who can't give much like a rich person, brings untold riches. And there is a Dhammapada story about this. This person just gave a bit only, and then he became very rich later on. So we cannot say you must do a lot of good karma, then only you get big good results. Sometimes even small karma can bring good results because the conditions are right for the karma to right. So karma works in an exponential way, not arithmetical way. There's another thing we need to know. Right? So this is a very interesting part about karma behind this story. So here, when we look back, I hope you understand this story better, that this is a way of the Buddha talking to us to use interesting ideas behind the culture, saying, okay, these are the gods and devas fighting. Whether it really happened or not, it's not the point. The point is where you have these evil thoughts, the results will come, right? And you have good thoughts, the results, good thoughts will come sooner or later. So the idea is how karma works. And then we use this as a point of departure to discuss the more profound, more difficult, and the ramifications of karma, in other words. Okay, so that's the story here. Now let me open to questions if you have.
There are many gods, many bodhisattvas, many things. And then they all go to see Buddha in one of the suttas.
Yeah.
And ask Buddha,
The Mahayana
who are the stronger one? Buddha answered, no one is better than Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. So, to me, there is no need to pray all this.
Yeah.
Whenever I go to a temple and see all this God, I just burn and put a jaws and say, may you be well and happy, and may you be enlightened.
Yes.
That's all I said to them. What God, what spirit, we only look to Buddha as our great teacher.
Yes.
And we follow strictly the teachings, the Dhamma. I think it is very safe.
Yes.
No need to confuse your mind.
Yeah.
This is a wonderful.
So you are applying the two teachings,
Yeah.
right?
So we just remember, no one is better than the Buddha,
Yeah.
Dhamma, Sangha.
Yes. So
Follow the
if people ask you, you must try to tell them about the two kinds of teaching, right? The implicit teaching, indirect teaching, and the direct teaching. So all these gods and devas and bodhisattvas, they're indirect teaching. They are symbols, they are cultural things, right? Different culture like the stories, and sometimes also religious competition. In China there was a time when different schools, they are like those kung fu schools. So this person came up with a meditation method. So this person does the traditional method, then the other teacher says, oh, this is an old Indian method. I got the new one. This is got Kungan, and Huato, and so on. So these are they start competing with each other. Why? Because they want support. It's all for money and power and so on. And these are what people today are talking about. They don't know the real story. So they just quote, oh, this great master, that great master, but they don't know the real story, you see. So we don't really need to be lost in such ideas. Well, these are all worldly aspects of the teaching, right? So you go straight into your mind, you're at peace with yourself, that's good enough. As we grow older and we become more familiar with the suttas and you practice your meditation, you find the teachings get easier and easier.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that the suttas are simpler for everybody, but when you see it, you begin to understand it more easily. And you find there's no need for so many unnecessary things. And you feel at peace with yourself. And that's very important. That's very important. Yeah? You see, young people, they like to prove themselves. So if many of these speakers are young people, they like to prove other people wrong and their school is right. I keep telling them, I said, you will change your mind in due course. All our life, if you look, we have been changing our minds. So now we may swear by something, but another 10 years, maybe sooner than that, we will change our opinions. So, but one thing you cannot change, for example, is true reality. You can't change your opinion about impermanence, for example. But how we see it will change. Right? We begin to see more broadly, more clearly.
We see impermanence everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere we see impermanence.
Any other questions?
Mr. Tan, you know this businessmen, they always crave topical.
Okay.
They say topical will plant language, and they really, every time you do the condition, they say they come back. And you will them business, but they, to them, Buddha doesn't bring them business.
True.
So what is the point?
It's a cultural thing. You see, because whatever wish we have, we try to create an image of it, to represent an idea. So you see, in a Chinese home, you see the word fu, meaning luck, mangala, okay? So these are what people like. You see, it's a cultural aspect of Buddhism. They talk about the future Buddha, right? Now, the earliest idea of the future Buddha, like all other Buddhas, is a handsome young man. I mean, he looks perfect as a human being. But then when this idea went to China, the future Buddha became a fat man. Why? Because to the Chinese, a big tummy, not just fat, a big tummy is more beautiful than a big chest. Okay, so it's the opposite of a Greek idea. Okay, so they have this Milofo, okay, this future Buddha, fat and laughing, happy, okay, all right? Because the Chinese dare not simply laugh, especially if they are low class or they are peasants. You cannot laugh because only the lords laugh and joke and talk nonsense, But if you are a peasant, you just keep quiet, or you laugh with the lords. So you have this laughing Buddha, where they like laughing Buddha because it's happy. And then it's not enough, because why? They love to have wealth, So they put the bag over the back of this Buddha. So this Buddha goes around with a big bag, And this is we call it cornucopia. Okay, this way, literature helps. Cornucopia is like a wish-fulfilling shell. Whatever you wish inside the shell, big shell, you can get it. So here is this bag that has got all the wish, whatever you want. This is the original Santa Claus, if you like, okay, the Buddhist one, all right? So he carries this bag, and if you meet him, you can ask for any wish you like. Then that's not enough, They make him have lots of children. So you see, one of the latest version, probably Song Dynasty or later, this future Buddha has lots of children all around him. Why? Because Chinese love children, okay? So they create all these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in their own image. That's one way of looking at it. Okay, now what did the Buddha say about this? The Buddha says, if you want to be rich, prayer doesn't work. You got to act in a way that will bring you riches. What does it mean? It means you got to work hard. You have to live a life which is morally upright, as taught in the Sigalovada Sutta. So if you really look at all this, the Chinese worshipping Topakong and so on, and the Chinese are diligent race, they're hardworking, you find that they don't just pray, they also work hard. Okay, right? That's a part which we forget, they don't just pray, they work very hard. Sometimes I think they work too hard. For example, you go to the market, you see they open 7 days a week. Some other store, they close certain times of the day, right? So, and you wonder whether, as we say, in English we like to say, do they have a life, the sort of thing. But that's their life. To them, they enjoy doing that. And if you know them well enough, they will tell you, oh, their children is overseas in some famous university, mind you. So you find that they're doing something there, all right? So this Topekong or whatever deity or Kwanti whatever they have there, it's just a kind of a reminder to them to work hard. Now, if that's the case, it doesn't matter who is up there, see? Important thing is they work hard. That's the meaningful thing to them now, okay? But of course, in a sense, it's just something meritorious. So there'll be no awakening for them because they may get all the money in the world, but then you find in the end, happiness is something else, right? So that's why in Buddhism we say how to be really happy. To be really happy, I mean, even if you don't have the thing that you want, you're happy. Let me just give a simple example. What is my happiness? Okay, here I am doing my translation work. When I go back, I say, oh, it's nice to be home. I can continue my translation work. But suppose that I have another talk. I'll say, oh, good, I can have another talk. So I go for the talk. I don't have to translate, Or a time comes when I have a long holiday. I can't translate anything, So I say, oh, that's fine too. I mean, it's nice to have a holiday, So whatever happens, you're happy. It's not like you say, oh no, I missed my translation work, and I'm not translated for 1 week and I feel terrible. Then you're not really happy, you see what I mean? So whether it happens or not, you're happy, okay? I used to, those days in the NUS, you have classes, I used to tell them, I say, well, if the early years, in the first 5 years, every week, even during vacation, we had classes, So, and then they said, do you mind if you have classes? I said, not at all. I mean, if you love suttas, it's my duty, my privilege to teach you. I'm very happy to teach you. If there's no class, I'm also happy. Then I have nothing to do. I can go home and do what I like. So either way, I'm okay, right? So that's the meaning of, in other words, don't be attached to it. You're happy, right? So we have to look at it in an open way. Okay. Any other question?
This Nama Rupa is originated from Abhidhamma, is it?
No, the suttas came first. This is the teaching of the Buddha, early Buddhism. Abhidhamma took this from the suttas. Yeah. Nama is the mind, naming things. Rupa is the physical objects, the 4 elements.
So, in fact, the Buddha segregate 5 types of aggregates.
Yes.
Form, feeling, perception, aggregate.
Yes.
Also part of this
Yes.
Abhidhamma.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes, I was talking about God,
Yes.
kitchen God.
Yes.
So I have one experience I will share.
Mm.
There was once I boiled a kettle of water.
Mm-hmm.
Then I forgot about it and went out. So I came back many hours later. My kettle completely empty.
Okay.
Not
Yes.
burnt. My gas also off.
Oh, just
It was
nice.
really, really
Timing,
serious,
All right.
And I found it, to tell me the kitchen looks.
Okay. All right. Now in psychology, there's a term for this. It's called synchrony. Synchrony. Synchrony means 2 things happening at the same time. Especially like good friends, You have not met each other for a long time, and then you happen to go to one place you normally never go to, and then you meet each other. I say, hey, that's wonderful. We call it coincidence, a simpler word, but it's so wonderful we don't call it coincidence, it's synchrony, okay? There is something really wonderful, all right? And when something bad happens, but it benefits you in a good way, we call it serendipity. Serendipity, see, because long ago these pirates, they landed on an island, they thought it was a bad island, actually it's something good for them, called serendipity, So serendipity is something that seems to be, let's say you lose a job, you got thrown out of a job, The boss say you're sacked, but then when you left the job, you found, wow, it's better for you, you feel free, and then you got a better job, So that's called serendipity, right? Okay, now we tend to correlate things. So there is something called cause-effect conditionality, and there's something called correlation. Okay, based on what you say, I often, Rana and I often like to use her as my audience and start cracking some philosophical jokes, Especially, let's say, when you're waiting for the bus and the bus is a bit late. I say, Ratna, it's time we do some magic of our own. So now you see this bollard, you know, the pillar on the bus stop. Said, you know, people, I see people rubbing on top of this bollard is black, and I think I need to rub this bollard. And if I rub this, I can guarantee you the bus will come. This bus number 823 will come. So just rub it, and true enough, the bus comes. You see. So I told her, you see, cause effect. Is it cause effect? Is it cause effect? It's not. I mean, it'd be silly if I rub the ball and then the bus comes. I mean, it's like as if the bus is controlled by. But the question is, that's precedes A, precedes B. Isn't it cause and effect? It's not cause and effect. We call that correlation. That's why philosophy is helpful here. It gives you the proper terms, you know. Correlation means they correlate. You relate them, but actually they are not related causally. One doesn't lead to the other. Okay? Oh, there's big argument whether cause and effect are the same thing or not. You know, we will go into that. So we must be careful to understand what is conditionality, what is correlation. Okay, coming back to this example you mentioned, you turn on you boil water, and then after that everything went off just nice. There's no water there, and so
The gas also went off.
yeah, the gas went off,
Constant
right?
switch.
So it is possible, right? We wouldn't say it's impossible. It's possible. So there's another saying, you know, by a Roman philosopher, I think Cicero. He says, "Whatever happens, happens because it can happen. Therefore, there are no miracles." Very logical, huh? Right?
Can I add something?
Sure.
I think sometimes we have to believe that the God really help us.
Yes, okay.
I think we have to.
Right. Okay, so now we'll come to that. Huh? So you do have faith in that
But I don't
kitchen God.
have any
Yeah, I mean, let's say with some belief, Chinese still have that kind of belief, you know. So it is not cause effect here. It is correlation. Now come the second, correlate. Why? Because, okay, hey, that's interesting, you know. I didn't switch it off, but it went off. Probably this Deva did it. Yeah? So you correlate it. It's correlate, but not conditionality. You see my point there?
Yeah.
In other words, that Deva, if he exists there, he didn't do it. You correlate it because of your faith. You say it must be. Okay, that's one. Again, another joke. I know it's very convenient for me to use as an example. You know, in our house, we often have to do a lot of dishes, piles of dishes to wash. You know, so sometimes I usually don't do much housework because I have my own work. But occasionally, after doing my work, you know, I just have some extra time. So I go to the kitchen and say, "Oh my goodness, a pile of dishes there." So I just wash it. You know, everything is clean. And then I get up in the morning and say, "Oh, how come everything is washed?" I said, "Oh, there are little helpful little elves in the house at night, and they come and wash all this up when you're not looking, you know. But the moment you see them, you don't see them because they're very shy, you know." So they say, "Oh, I know, you're the one who did it." I say, "Okay." So this is where there are many such stories where people get help, you know, from strange sources and so on. Yeah, you can say it's good karma, you can say it is coincidence, but it is correlation. I was not so fortunate. Same thing happened to me. At least once. I think at least once everybody we have burnt kettles now, you know. When we put this kettle of water over the oven, we forgot to turn it off, and then this boiling, there's no whistle, so everything dries up. You get this metal smell. Then you know, oh dear, everything is so this happens, and you got a hole in the bottom of the pot. So that does happen. Of course, the kitchen god is not helping. But remember, if the kitchen god helped you on that one occasion, you must also remember he didn't help you on many other occasions where he could have helped you. That's the other thing we don't think about, you see. This is called the Buddhism of faith. It's just like those Buddhisms where they say, "Oh, I'm going to chant Namo Yo Renge Kyo and all my problems will be answered." And they will swear to it, you know. And I'm not saying they're lying. They actually believe it is happening to them. So you ask yourself, how come that's the case? Okay, let's get 100 people, all of them chant Namo Yo Renge Kyo. No? Let's say out of the 100, only 2 or 3, you know, get their whatever they ask for answered. 2 or 3 is 2 or 3%, right? And you collect all these 2 or 3%, and they all form the group called the Namo Hyo Renge Kyo group. So of course they will say that it all works for them, but the other 90% will not talk about it. You see. So this is again faith and chance. This is where someone who studies theory of probability will be able to explain better to you. It's one of the most difficult mathematical subjects. So anyway, whatever it is, take it as a wonderful thing. Don't make too much of a big deal out of it, because it's not likely to happen again. The next time you boil water, you better watch out, because the kitchen god might not grant you a second wish.
After that, I bought electric kettle.
Yes. Okay, that's wise. Okay. Any other question? Well, we have a couple of minutes more.
One thing I find that every time we send out metta, send metta out, when I go out and meet those people, they are always smiling.
Yes. Good.
They
Yeah.
are very helpful. Even the little child will smile at me and
Yes.
say, Papa, speak to the strangers, you know.
Right. Yeah. So what do we learn from there? In other words, we can initiate. We can initiate it. Yeah. We can initiate them. You hear a lot of people tell this kind of story of loving kindness, and when you live in the crowded area of Singapore, it's good to do that. Okay. Yes.
Can I ask a simple question?
Mm.
When we do practice meditation, okay, normally we always like, may I be well happy.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I was thinking, I no need this such blessing. If I do really loving kindness to all people, indirectly I'll get it right. But some people, no, I must have this job of may I be well happy. That's what the other monk was saying. By right, you should really loving kindness to others first, then you indirectly you get. Is it right? I don't know.
Well, both are right actually, because it depends on your personality.
Yes.
It depends on your needs.
Yes.
Yeah. But if you look at the sutta on loving kindness, I think Maharahulawada Sutta and a few other suttas, there is what's called a stock passage. Stock passage, that means they talk of this, how to do loving kindness. It always begins with may I be well and happy, and then the 4 directions, 10 directions, frontward, right side, back, left, above, below. That's already 8, right? And then that's 4. And then the directions in between, you get 8, right? And then above, below, you get 10, right? And of course, if we talk about 11 directions, the 11th one is to ourselves.
11.
So the last one is to ourselves, all right? So you have 2 ways of doing it. One is you start with yourself, the other one is you end with yourself, or you can do both. Okay. Now, why we need to start with ourselves is quite simple, because you must have loving kindness in you first. If you say, may I be well and happy, you start there. So the idea is to fill yourself with loving kindness so that you can show it outwards. That's the idea. Not just to have it for myself only. Then it is limited. You see? Because the last stage is called breaking the barriers. That means you don't limit it to anyone. That's why it's called apamanya. Apamanya means cannot be measured. No measurement. Boundless. Okay? No limit. So it is not just me. Right? If you say, may all beings may all beings be well and happy, you also have loving kindness. It's possible. But if you say, may I be well and happy, then you are more sure of it. But you don't stop there. You don't stop there. Yeah. The idea is to balance up, in other words. Yeah. And some people, they can't do it for themselves for various reasons, So you can start with other people first.
Yes.
And then at the end of it, you bring it back to you, as mentioned in the suttas. So there are different ways of doing it. As long as you have loving kindness, it is good.
So this one another meditation. Normally you are normal person. When you practice meditation, you sit for hours, you become abnormal, right?
But it depends, yeah. If you're not properly
Yeah,
trained,
you're not properly
if you
trained,
do
you see.
wrong method,
Yeah, wrong method.
or if you have some personal issues, yeah, it's not advisable to do long sittings.
Yes.
Yeah? Long sittings should come naturally. It should come, in other words, you feel joyful and you just feel like sitting. So I wouldn't say the longer you sit, the better. I think most teachers, if not all teachers, will agree with this. It's not how long you sit.
So the word abnormal, when you practice meditation, sometimes you practice too long, and then you imagine that you are reaching a jhana state, which is abnormal, right?
Well, I can't say that, because these are things we don't know. Some people, let's just put it this way, people who do attain jhanas, you can see they're happy, they're calm, and they don't talk much about it. Because
Yes.
if they're really happy, they just don't feel like talking. They're so happy, and they're just smiling. And it's just like you won a lot of money and you're so happy. You're not likely to tell people, very dangerous, So you just keep quiet, you're very happy, And then maybe you might tell close friends, relatives, yeah. So people will go around, you go to internet, you find there are all kinds of people. Some of them even call themselves, they attain this level, that level.
Yeah.
They have 10 jhanas. So you know very well it's unlikely. Because if they are, they won't show off in such a way if they attain on this level. Because these levels are very humbling. Because you're happy, you're peaceful. That's why we need a good teacher, we need proper guidance, and study the suttas carefully. Because meditation is not something,
Yes.
it's something serious. It's not easy to do, and you got to do it properly. You need to have loving kindness, joy, wisdom, all these things put together in right balance. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll end here now. And we just do a short reflection. Today we have studied the sutta, the Isayo Samudaka Sutta, which talks about the nature of karma, and also the nature of the Buddha's teaching, how we should differentiate between stories and direct teachings, so that we have a better understanding of the nature of religion. And we are able to apply the teaching of non-self to what we see as religion and beliefs. All views are provisional, they help us to understand things, and we have to go beyond views so that we get peace of mind. Reflecting in this way is good karma. By the power of such karma, may we be well and happy in this life itself. May we prosper in the Buddha's teaching. And may we meet a success in all the good things we do. Above all, by the power of this various good karma we have done, our generosity, our faith in the three jewels, our practice of mental cultivation. May we attain spiritual liberation, especially stream winning, in this life itself. Above all, in this moment of peace, let us send out our loving kindness to all beings, to all the people working here, helping this place, to all our loved ones, that they may be well and happy. And also to those whom the Dharma have not touched, that they may see the Dharma and attain liberation too. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you.